hunt all the enemies, really frustrated because time was so slow. But it feels obvious now that of course you want to give that to the player, but it wasn't very obvious then, and there was a lot of growing and thinking how this medium works, games medium. Limitations are a blessing because you can't do everything. You don't have endless time, endless money, so trying to use people's imagination to work in favor of you. Then sometimes you can't avoid something. You need to commit, and often it's good if you do it really well. So, trying to yin and yang your way around designing games, deciding what to leave out and what to do really well. And then, because it's a story-driven game, and above all game, so it has to feel good to play and experience, but it also has to, or it can, while doing that, tell a story on every possible level. Its environment, the music, the actors, if there's some, everything about can be a story. So I tried to pick a few examples along the way which sort of show this approach, or have been a revelation for me or the company on the journey that this is how you do one of these things. So for example with Max Payne, the bullet time and the inspiration, and then defining the medium, how to do something which is cool on a movie and how to rethink it and make it equally cool or even cooler in a game. Or how very difficult problem we went to do a psychological thriller, and that's an extremely problematic style base because in games you usually, for example, want to see your enemies, or you're very frustrated if you're just killed, and usually you just quit the game. But in a psychological movie, you rarely see the enemy. For example, in Aliens, or Alien, you mostly just wait. And trying to think about how to balance that and how to communicate and have that spirit carry over was extremely difficult. Quantum Break took quite a bold leaps in cross-media and character tech, and this is an example of something where we had to commit and let's do character technology to end all character technologies and try to do as good real-time characters as we possibly can. And then Control, it's a massive story of its own, but I'll take a very small portion and talk a little bit about the oldest house, which is definitely a character in a game, the entire environment where the game happens. So, Max Payne. Well, I already spoke about the bullet time, and these pretty much defined Remedy as a company. As we went along, we were thinking how to make a game and how to be inspired, and we were inspired by two things: Hong Kong action movie, and then the writer Sam Lake brought in, like he was really a big fan of kind of film noir, hard-boiled detective stories, so they made this sort of, I don't know if it's unholy or holy marriage. And definitely watched all the Beat Police action movies and find locations, so a construction site or back alleys or rooftops or whatever. And then the story, often people started just playing it from its seat, which was exactly what we were hoping for. They started playing it because of the, I want to do slow motion dives and shoot with the double Uzi in akimbo, which you want to do, of course. But then they stayed for the story, and afterwards, well, they were like, well, I was actually rather engaged. And whenever, that's one of the key things again, like in a movie it's rather boring if you don't care about the characters, and we tried very hard to care, and we did care for Max ourselves, and it was 7 years of love with that guy. But it was really interesting how team immediately knew what Max, or it was almost like Max told us what to do rather than us anymore commanding the character when we were doing Max Payne 2. It was so obvious how to go forward, and it took only 18 months compared to the 4 years that had been taken before. What's this? Oh yes, this is one of those sort of let's understand what the medium means moments. So, and avoiding problems. We didn't have, and how limitations are your blessing. So Max Payne was doing the story with these graphic novel screens, by the way, and down there it's a stop button, so it's actually a video controller. So there's quite a few mediums here. It's a game which plays a graphic novel with the video controller, but it was a long journey, and this was the correct way to do it. At the beginning we never had the sound, and then you just click through them like you would a comic book. And then people hear the voices in their heads, they read the story, and that works. But if you start playing sound, people start listening, and it becomes a given medium, a movie, although it may look like a comic or a graphic novel. So actually the correct controller is a video player. And there was a moment when it was really broken, because it was sort of mixture of the two. You were hearing the voices, but you had to click every screen. So first of all, saving a lot of energy not doing the 3D, having just 1 or 2 guys working on the graphic novel, everybody loving them, and nobody ever came afterwards saying, yeah, you guys were saving money. It was quite the opposite, because of the style and the strong engagement where you could just follow or fall into the story and sort of implying and not doing a very crappy 3D animation, rather doing an imagination inspiring images where you fill the gaps, and then it mostly is in your head. You're actually doing a better delivery. So massive save, and then turning the limitation into a victory, and then thinking what your medium is. Then this is me in Remedy's basement, trying to look for the old stuff. This is actually from Game Informer game to do a story, and I took a clip from there. This is Sam Lake's mother, which is the main villain, so go figure. But so there's nothing holy, even though often you try to impress your peers and you would like to do really cool 3D model or whatever and animate it. But we were thinking that we're here to tell the story, and whatever means necessary we do it. So we asked, then there was barely no money. We were kind of upcoming company, and game industry was upcoming as well. So we asked friends and family to join, and let's do photographs, and we only need the references and they will be painted over anyway, so just come over here and we'll do a little bit of fun. And it worked. But there's, in a way, whatever it takes, and often going back to the source. So if there's a human, like here, only human is the best person to convey emotions and feelings. So rather than drawing them from scratch, which may have been tempting for any artist who is kind of like, I don't use photographs, I paint. But it would have been a foolish thing to do, and that's also been sort of a underlying theme, I think, with Remedy's work is that this is the main thing which we're doing, the game and delivering the story, and we save feet and save work wherever we can, and then if it's justified by the story, then that's just fine, whatever it takes. Cheap or expensive or whatever, but always consider your medium. So Max Payne 2 was continuation of the same vein, mostly, so no major alterations there, except much more higher production values. Then, years go by, and Alan Wake comes along, and we set out very ambitiously, like after we sold Max Payne to Take-Two and Rockstar, there was maybe even a little too much money in the bank in a way that the ambition grew, and limitations are your friend, and sometimes if there's too much, freedom and nothing forces you to decide that this is the framework, then that's really awkward situation for actually a designer, because anything goes this way or that way or everywhere, there's no limit. So embrace the tight budget and be creative, because that's the only forcing factor. You easily end up going that other path and somehow not doing the bold enough cuts if there's no limits. So embracing the limitations. And for a while, I think there were a little bit of, journey that were taken not so, it wasn't necessary to take all those steps which we took for Alan Wake, but it really was creating a very large open world tech and moving completely new way and rethinking and being very ambitious about what does it mean to be a psychological thriller, which we all loved, and we loved Twin Peaks, and we wanted to make that kind of a game, whatever it is. And whereas, for example, then the medium was interesting because there's a writer called Alan Wake who writes, and his writings turn into reality in the game world. But the whole show is presented as a TV show, because that was far more appealing to us in a way that we were doing DVD box sets. Everybody was binge watching different shows. Then nowadays you maybe Netflix, but then you were doing it with the DVD boxes. So that kind of an experience, and it suited much better a game which is much longer than the Max Payne 3-act type of a movie where you kind of introduce the character and then there's the bad moments, and then through those hardships they eventually win. Like classic American 3-act movie structure was sort of undercurrent of Max Payne. This was a TV show with much more different, more elaborate steps on the way. Let's see. I may have to talk
One of the most
meanwhile.
anticipated titles of 2010.
Keep this a little lower now.
In cinematic story
So,
convention. Alan Wake aims to create a unique thriller experience. The game seamlessly blends fierce cinematic action with a gripping storyline where things can happen unexpectedly at any time. In order to create the game's unique action, Remedy's goal was to integrate the themes of light and darkness into the combat. The dark presence that threatens Wake is possessing the local townsfolk, and Wake's shadowy enemies seem invincible under the cover of darkness. Before the player can fight them, he first needs to burn away the darkness with light. The use of light as a gameplay element is integrated tightly into the action elements of the game. A handheld flare gives you a momentary safe haven. flashlights and batteries become an important resource when even military-grade searchlights can become the key to survival. The gameplay provides variety, with a multitude of enemies, vehicles, poltergeists, and other threats. As the dark presence grows in power, the player will never know what to trust, as even the most innocent, inanimate object can come to life and turn into a threat. In addition to flashlights and weapons, the player will have to cleverly use the environment in order to survive. The action is paced with environmental puzzles, collectibles, and story-driven content. This is where the game's supporting cast comes into play. Like Remedy's Max Payne games, Alan Wake is thick with pop culture references. Among others, Remedy lists Stephen King, Lost, and Twin Peaks as their influences. The game creates a suspenseful, unique thriller experience only seen to date in film and TV, with the kind of chilling atmosphere, powerful narrative, twists, and cliffhangers that modern audiences have come to expect. The game's lead character, Alan Wake, is a best-selling writer suffering from a writer's block. While vacationing in the idyllic small town of Bright Falls, Wake finds himself trapped in a nightmare. His wife Alice goes missing, and he keeps finding pages from a book he can't even remember writing, and the words are coming true before his eyes. Remedy is also setting the bar high with their soundtrack. The custom-composed cinematic score is combined with the use of licensed songs to create a strong atmosphere. Is by far the biggest single-player experience that Remedy has created, and to ensure that every player is provided with an optimal gameplay experience, the game constantly monitors the player's progress and adjusts the difficulty on the fly, maintaining a sweet spot that is suitably challenging. After years of development, the result is a heart-pounding single-player thrill ride that raises the bar in storytelling with a wealth of suspense, twists, and cliffhangers.
Okay, I gave the guy a chance to talk. Of course, this was something we got back in the day. My favorite was still that it was a heart pounding, and on that moment the guy was being hit. But the implying and atmosphere. Again, trying to put people's imagination to work for you. Insomnia, for example, anything from that director is awesome. But you have to always have a real life base, or the supernatural, reminder, not fantasy. Supernatural is different. In Alan Wake, the idea was always that it must be something which you still think that it may be happening within your head. As a psychological thriller, you're not quite sure if you're turning crazy or if the world is turning crazy. Let's go a bit forward, running a bit low on time. There were two things which led to the Quantum Break, or were inspired, or let's say, not inspired. They were important while setting off to do Quantum Break. One of them was that the facial performance and character performance was really difficult still at 2009 and 10, and it was really hard to buy anything that from the outside which would solve that, so we went to a crazy idea that we need to do this on our own. And then there was this episode within the multimedia of Alan Wake, which was in that world, and often in Remedy games there's TV shows which are reflecting the game world and telling the story. So there was this one episode called Quantum Suicide, which then sort of inspired the next project, which was Quantum Break. And foolishly maybe, game graphics and live action was set to put on side by side, which is rather kind of tall order, because if your character takes sucks next to the Hollywood cast, that's really awkward. And real people show if there's anything missing in the character tag. So let's watch this still. Oh, sorry, going too fast. So yeah.
Hey guys, I'm Sean Ashwell, and this is Quantum Break. Quantum Break is an epic story. It's a story about a world in crisis, and it's really a story about destiny. It's exciting as an actor to be a part of a game that has a focus on character and performance. Not only do you do the character preparation and study, you also have to be completely digitally scanned and placed into a video game. Having a virtual body, essentially, is a completely foreign sort of technique for me. I think it's pushing my boundaries. Where is he? Where's my brother? Working with the other actors has been really cool. We've just started talking about these relationships. We've just started delving into who these characters are and how they'll interact. The game is going to influence the show and vice versa.
No.
I think it's a really unique way of storytelling that's going to bring the game player deeper into the characters.
So the long journey to create a character technology, and I'm gonna go this really fast because this is a massive rabbit hole. But this just to prove in a way the point of like when you commit to something, then it's a big thing to commit to something, and then you might find that the rabbit hole is pretty big. By this time, years had gone by, and we've developed kind of an approach like how we want to do with the characters. So the story dictates that let's do a mood board character like this. Maybe Joaquin Phoenix has the right flavor, but actually that guy may have even better flavor because he kind of looks like our main cast character, and it could be his brother, but has that manic quality. And okay, if we make him, what would he look like, how his outfits work, and let's see different types of things which are not problematic in a game, but still are iconic, and do the whole kind of dressing. We need super high resolution kind of scans if we want to reference the real actors in their outfits. So let's create a system with a few dozens of cameras and use photogrammetry and create millions of polygons. Then you need to avoid all the oiliness of the skin, so you need to use a variety of polarization fields to get rid of all the oiliness, to get the actual texture color. And then you get a very high resolution character, but you can't use that because it's too high res. But you want the wrinkle maps because human faces are moving really weirdly, and you actually understand that there is teeth, and if the teeth are wrong, there's massive gaps here, and if you're smiling, you look really weird. So you need to take dental thing from your cast. So that's Dominic Monaghan's teeth, and different kinds of references, how the neck behaves is really important for a human, and how you open your mouth and how different stretching happens, and then you have the high res, and then you have the low res, and you need to make them together to be able to run it in a game, and then you get the final result, which is actually pretty good. And you need to do the body and find a good new T-pose where you get all the body references as well, and all the, as you would. And here you get the wrinkle maps and the shapes. And then you finally may have a high resolution base. By the way, that's Max Payne 1 reference photography, and one of the level designers, and I'm photographing. So quite far. Body animation, well, you need to do a lot of different technologies to compensate all this, but that's pretty commonplace these days, but wasn't maybe 5 years ago. And then the hardest part in computer graphics. And this is the face technology, which goes wrong in many cases, even in film. So you need to first of all stabilize and do the tracking. You need to do the wrinkle maps and teach the face how to behave. You need to light the characters very carefully and create the technology that will help you to put it on timeline. And then later, when you do it a little bit longer, you create a few SIGGRAPH papers and realize that there's two layers. So you want to use deep learning to, it's going a bit weirdly. Let's see if there's anything here. All right. Apologies. Something weird happened.